Well, I'm John Shepherd and welcome to Track Chat, and I've got Jonathan Earley with me and Jacob Paul.
Why 400 metre hurdles? I think I asked myself that quite a few times, especially at the end of a race or the end of a session. But I think, to be honest, I started as a multi-eventer, so I always started. I like to do all the events. As a youngster, I think it's a good idea for most young athletes to start out as multi-eventers, to try every single event. You know, what they like, what they don't like, what they're good at, what they're not good at. And I think my best events were the 400 metres and the sprint hurdles, so I sort of just put them both together, and yeah, that was what worked for me. I've always said to myself I'd rather focus on one event rather than training across the board for all 10 events, which would have been what I would build up to in a decathlon. So yeah, I'm just happy that I found that.
You get a lot of 4 hurdlers who can do the multi-events, because Ashton Neaton was good, was good at the 4 hurdles. I think Seb Rogers, didn't he come from the...
Yes, so Seb came from the decathlon as well, I believe, the multi-events. So yeah, it's one of those events where really you've got to be quite technically gifted at the same time. So obviously in a decathlon, where every event is fairly technical, gives you a good sort of grounds for entering into the 400 hurdles then, when really you've got to be fairly technical going over the hurdles, obviously, and hurdling under fatigue as well.
On that subject, because others were going to talk too much about the decathlon, we want to obviously talk about the 4 hurdles. But the 400 metre runner's strength, how tough is it?
To be honest, comparing a 400 metres to a 400 metre hurdles, I feel like I'm always more, out of breath, tired, on the floor, after a 400 metre flat, because in a 400 metre flat you're gun to finish. 400 hurdles allows the race to be broken up into 10 different stages, and you've got to be able to hurdle 10, so you can't go off like a rocket and try and finish like you can in a 400 in a way, because you've got to be able to hurdle the last hurdle, and if you stutter into it or don't take it very well, that's going to cost you a lot of time at the end. Whereas in a 400, obviously in the last 50, you're not going to worry about jumping over another barrier. It's just a case of getting to that line.
So obviously I'm a triple jumper, and I have a set approach. This year it was 17 steps to the board. In the 4 hurdles you have a stride pattern.
That's right.
Because I've heard so many different athletes have different stride patterns. They go, 15 to hurdle 7 and then change. What's your stride pattern, like in long jump, is obviously probably the most important aspect of the event. I want to get a consistency in my stride pattern, and attacking each hurdle from the right position. As in long jump, triple jump, you want to take off, as close to that board as you possibly can, to get the furthest distance. So the stride pattern I do is 14 strides to hurdle 7, and then I do 15s from 7 to the finish. Last year I was trying to do 13 strides. I feel like 13 strides is sort of like that magical number. I don't know whether in triple jump there's a number like 17.
Not so much.
No.
Was it Ed Moses who ran 13 strides all the way around?
That's right, yeah. So 13 strides is sort of that magical number. A lot of people think that the less strides you do, the faster you're going to run, and that's certainly what I had in my head as well. So I was trying to make 13 strides to hurdle 5 and then finish on 14 strides, whereas I found that I was maybe getting to hurdle 5, so halfway around the race quicker, I was finishing a lot slower. So now if I do my 14 strides from the start of the race, I'm going to get to hurdle 5 maybe half a second slower, but I'm going to finish the second half of the race a whole second quicker, which averaging out is going to my finishing time is going to be half a second quicker at the end. So obviously that's more beneficial for me, and I've got to the point now in training this year that my 14 strides to hurdle 5, so halfway through the race, is actually quicker than my 13 strides was anyway.
Does that mean you've got to hurdle off both legs then?
Yeah, that's right.
Do you get in the wrong position? I always notice, is it an advantage to have the inside leg coming around that bend as opposed to the outside leg?
Yeah, definitely. So I would alternate legs each hurdle if I'm doing 14 strides.
Okay.
And yeah, I try to make it so that my first hurdle, I'm hurdling off my left leg, which allows me to sort of lean into the bend rather than sort of leaning out. if you're leaning out, you're going to bring your trail leg through like slightly awkwardly, and it's just not very comfortable or efficient going over the hurdles. So yeah, definitely with left leg lead, it's better around the bend. Then on the straight, yeah, it doesn't really matter too much. And then on the second bend, there's a couple of hurdles to negotiate. So I think sometimes I have to do one of the hurdles on the bend maybe with my right leg. But I think by then you're pretty fatigued, so it's not quite as crucial, yeah. Whereas on the first hurdle, when you're travelling at quite a lot of speed, definitely I prefer to hurdle with my left leg. It allows me to just attack the hurdle a lot better. So. Yeah.
Does anything ever go wrong? Because with the jumps, I mean, we can get the approach completely wrong, but we have 5 more attempts or 2 more. So does anything ever go wrong that you have to suddenly think on your feet? Or
yeah, definitely. I mean, you could turn up to a race. You've probably got the same with jumping, and you've got a -5 headwind down the back straight, and you sort of think to yourself, right, well, am I going to make my 13 strides now? So really, turning up to each race, I've got to have not just one stride pattern ready in my head, but maybe 2 or 3, so I can, depending on the weather, if that's going to affect my race, then I've got another stride pattern that I can rely on.
That's an interesting point, because obviously being a triple jump, long jumper, you've got run-throughs to practice. You can't run a 400 metre hurdle race in warm-up. So how on earth do you gauge the wind?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just experience more than anything from having done it for so many years now. I've been fairly fortunate anyway that I'm fairly good at judging my hurdles, so I can tell if I go over one hurdle that I know and I'm like stretching for it. So say I'm stretching for hurdle 6, then I may make the adjustment early, so that then I don't have to stutter into hurdle 7 or make the adjustment closer to the hurdle, because that's when you're going to stutter, lose a lot of momentum.
So in the jumps, obviously you're going person after person, so you can respond to someone's performance. And in a race, you see in the 800 someone goes up hard. Does that happen in the full hurdles, and does that affect your race?
Yeah, definitely. I think genuinely you tend to go with the pace of the race. So say there's someone who's a lot faster than you in the lane outside of you, it definitely helps in terms of using them as a marker. I think I've been guilty a few times in the past of having one eye on my hurdles, one eye on the person outside of me, which isn't necessarily the best thing to do. They say you should have your blinkers on and run your own race, which is true. But I think it definitely helps if the rest of the field is really going for it at the start, because it helps push you along, and especially at the finish as well, when you're chasing someone, you're a lot likely to drive harder, run faster than or if you're in a battle with someone, you're neck and neck, then it sort of spurs you on. And as competitive as I am, or I like to think I am, it definitely helps me finish a race. Whereas if you're in front, then tendency is to not push quite as hard, maybe ease down a little bit. But yeah, sometimes it can play against your favour. So my last race this season was at the World University Games, and I think I was definitely guilty there of watching the person in the lane outside of me, which sort of took my focus off my race slightly, which I think probably had an adverse effect on my finishing time.
How did you do in that?
So in the World University Games, I came 3rd in my semi-final. I finished 9th overall, so I was 1 place away from making the final, which was frustrating, but I went into the event ranked, I think 10th or 11th, so to finish 9th, I've done slightly better than that, so I can't complain really.
And you'd had a long season, because you went to the Euro Under-23s as well?
That's right, yeah. So at the Euro Under-23s, I finished 5th.
What's your time?
So my time there, around 49.8 in the semi-final, and 49.9 in the final. So yeah, it's quite tough, going through the rounds, doing 400 hurdles on consecutive days. So there's not a long period to rest between heat, semis and final.
So this year was the first time you dipped under 50 seconds, if I remember.
That's right.
Yeah. And you were talking to us earlier about this being a bit of a breakthrough season for you. What do you put that down to?
I think, to be honest, probably my mental attitude towards the event and training, I think, has been the biggest factor, helping me towards running that sub 50 seconds. And also I think because I've graduated from university in 2016, my training then, after graduating from 2016 into the 2017 season, I think I've not had, the pressures of university, student life, anything like that, which could be factors affecting performance. So it's allowed me really just to focus on my training, and I think that's really what's benefited me most. And also training back at home, training with my normal coach, Marina Armstrong, and my training group, and I think that's something that's really helped me.
Yeah, we were going to ask you about that, the training group. Got a lot of high-profile 400-metre hurdlers in it. Does that obviously inspire you? Well, tell us who's in your group.
Yeah, so we've got a girl called Shona Richards who has been competing for Great Britain for a few years now, gone through the junior ranks, has done pretty well. She's actually the British record holder for 400-metre hurdles, female under 20 age group in Britain, and has won world junior medals, so she's got good experience on the international stage. Another guy I trained with called Chris Mccallister, so he made the British Championships final this year, so he's had a pretty good season, and he's ran some fast times as well, so he's up there. And it's good to train with a group where everyone's striving towards that same goal. Everyone's at that sort of trying to break through into that senior international level. So that helps, motivate everyone, and we're working towards a goal together. So,
little anecdote. We heard that Marina makes you eat certain foods all the time.
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, she sends us diet plans, which we try to stick to.
Can you tell us whether you like the food or not?
Yeah, I mean, they're all right. Sometimes some of those things are quite extravagant. I remember one time she said one of the meals she wanted us to have was a steak with Himalayan salt, something like that. So it was very specific. Yeah. Not quite sure what the benefit of the Himalayan salt was, but I'm sure she's got her reason. Well, I mean, I never got the Himalayan salt. I just used the normal salt. So
altitude salt.
Yeah, maybe. But so she's pretty good. Like, she keeps on top of the trends and the diets and stuff. So
so do you? A lot of athletes I know don't follow a healthy diet. Do you think that as a whole you do?
Well, I mean, it's something I've been criticised for myself in the past. I like to think I have a fairly healthy diet. I think as well as, just following a strict healthy diet, you've got to eat foods that you like and enjoy at the same time. If someone tells me, eggs are really good for you, you need to be eating eggs before you race, before you train, I could go and eat eggs before I run, before I train. I may not like eggs. I may react badly to them, and that's going to affect my performance negatively, isn't it? Yeah. So, there's a lot of different variations that you can look at within your diet. But I think, to be honest, everyone's different, and whatever works for you. If you find something that works for you, then I don't think somebody else can tell you different. So,
well, that's a very good point. You've got to experiment in training. You can't do it before a race as well.
No, definitely.
Because you need time as well to find out how that food's digested and whether it actually assists you.
Yeah, definitely. So when I was at university, I'll admit I didn't have the best diet. Living on my own, I had that freedom. I think the closest thing I got to a vegetable was an onion ring. So, so yeah, it probably wasn't the best diet I had, but it's something I've tried to work on. Since then, and my diet's definitely improved, and I think my performance has probably improved because of that.
I mean, a lot of parents will ask me as a coach, what should they eat? What should the son and daughter eat before a competition? The 400 hurdler, you don't want too much in your stomach, I guess.
No.
I mean, what would you eat in the last hour and a half towards a race?
So, I mean, the last hour and a half, not a lot. I try to eat some good sort of carbohydrates, maybe 2 or 3 hours before I race, so that would be about an hour and a half before I start warming up, because that's then going to see me through to after the race. The last thing I want is to be hungry on the start line. I think, to be honest, I start my sort of pre-race eating ritual, if you like, the day before the race. So the night before a race, I'll have like a big pasta or something which involves a lot of carbs and some protein, obviously, as well, which I think if it may not actually benefit me, but if mentally it makes me feel more comfortable on the start line, then I think it's going to have a positive effect on my performance. When I was younger, so I probably didn't think so much about my diet. I was in Belgium, and I think we were in Bruges, and trying to find somewhere to eat, and everywhere was pretty expensive. And I was only young, so I didn't want to go spending a lot of money on healthy food. So me and my mate, we actually went to the kebab shop and just got a little burger each. And I ran a PB the next day. So that year I was actually trying to break 52 seconds, and I ran, I think, 52.03. I'd run a few low 52-second runs, and this was the time I finally broke 52, and I ran a 51.5, so I broke it by half a second. Probably not the best thing to do.
So you graduated from university in 2016, and now you're, I guess, professional track and field. How do you fund that? I mean, graduating from uni, most students get into a city job. For an athlete, it's probably not the best thing. How do you go about managing that?
Yeah, so I mean, really, I found that after you've graduated from university, those really are your make or break years. That's what I'm sort of experiencing a bit at the moment. So throughout school, throughout university, you're quite well supported, quite well funded, either by your parents, or there's quite a few funding schemes going around. Futures program, but they're more targeted for people that are still in full-time education. So once you come outside of that, it is a bit like, what do I do next? Do I go into the working world? Obviously, I've got to earn a living for myself. So, if I can't do that for athletics, I'm going to have to find another source to do that. But obviously, my passion is athletics. That's what I want to take long term. So, to be honest, I've taken a bit of a risk this year myself. So I've not taken in loads of funding, and in terms of working, I've not done loads of work to support myself financially.
What is your work? What do you do?
So but what I do is I do part-time fitness instructing and personal training, which I find that is not quite as many hours, but it's good sort of pay per hour.
So last weekend you were away with Pippa. How did that go?
No, it was good. We were away for the English Schools Multi-Events Championship. Early September, and the weather was far from summer-like. In fact, it was cold, wet and windy throughout most of the 2 days of competition. So taking all that into consideration, the performances of the athletes were very good. In the 80 metres hurdles, Pippa clocked 11.17 seconds for the fastest time. However, Emily Race, running in another race, clocked 11.23 seconds, so Pippa just had a 9-point lead going into the high jump. The high jump has always been, how shall we say, interesting for Pippa. Her technical ability is improving, but a lack of training time has not helped recently. Still, she looked much more confident in this competition, with numerous first-time clearances up to and including 150, and a second-time clearance at 1 metre 53. Much improved was her takeoff and her ability to keep focusing on going up and not prematurely rotating into the bar. We had high hopes for a 156 PB, but unfortunately it was not to be, despite some very close attempts. So after the high jump, Pippa has slipped back to 7th place, 239 points behind Emily Race, who had cleared 1 metre 74, so we were now on to the shot put. It looked promising in warm-up with a standing throw over 12 metres, but in the competition proper, Pippa managed to only get to 12 metres 42. However, that was still her second best put ever. Going into the 200 metres, Pippa was in 5th place, whilst Olivia Dobson had taken over the lead, in part courtesy of a championship best performance shot put of 14 metres 14. Pippa's 200 metre PB was in need of revision, and so it was to be, as she clocked a time of 25.68 seconds, and this moved her into 5th place at the end of day 1. Day 2 seemed slightly better weather-wise, but it was equally, if not more, windy. In the long jump, Pippa opened with a 5 metre 50 effort, which was a safe opener. As she took off before the board, she lost about 20 to 30 centimetres. She improved to 5 metres 63 in round 2, however, both Emily Race and Jessica Hopkins leapt further with 5 metres 70 plus efforts. Into the javelin, Pippa was now in 4th place and 178 points off the lead. Despite a reasonable third round effort of 27 metres 92 centimetres, the gap between her and Emily Race in 1st place was around 18 to 20 seconds in terms of the time for the 800 and the points deficit. Pippa relishes 800 metre running, and despite strong headwinds down the back straight, she went off as if it was a 400 metre race. She stopped the clock in an outstanding time of 2 minutes 17.32 seconds. So where did this put her in the overall standings? Amazingly, it took her up into 2nd place, just 91 points behind winner Emily Race. Overall, it was a great result for Pippa, and her points score took her to 5th on the all-time under-17 heptathlon lists for the UK. Okay, for this segment of the show, we're going to talk about pre-season training. It's coming up to October in the UK, and we've got 2 athletes from 2 different events here, and I'm going to chip in a little bit as well. So, Jonathan, what would you do, and what do you think people should be doing for your event at this time of the season?
Yeah, so I mean, at this point, so training officially starts in October. I think for us right now, it's about building general fitness, so naturally taking a break from things and indulge a little bit, maybe more than I should have, and it's just about getting to a good level of just basic fitness. Now that's different for a triple jumper. It's not about going out for 30-minute runs every day. It's more, okay, let's do some strides, some circuits, getting used to training.
Talking here about your pre-season break, or the pre-season break, and then when you start back to training, let's see what you're doing at the moment.
Yeah, so we have about a 2 or 3 week break after the season's finished, and then we start to get into, like you say, pre-winter training, if you like, just building up that basic general level of fitness and getting your body used to training again, because you don't realise how much 2 weeks actually your body eases down so much, your muscles relax down quite a lot. So in my personal training, I actually teach a fitness class, and I was doing a demonstration of just some squats and lunges within my 2 week break. I literally did about 2 or 3 lunges. The next day I actually had DOMs, so yeah, that's how much your body will actually relax down. So yeah, it's just mainly about easing your body back into training. So we would do some longer runs, like 20-30 minute runs, and they'll actually feel fairly painful as well, when you wouldn't think it would do. So yeah, just basically setting you up for the long winter.
We've got probably 2 approaches to training here. Training planning is called periodisation. As a coach, I use a short to short all the time. It's always speed orientated. Now I'm assuming that you're doing a long to short or long to longer. How does your training work?
Yeah, so ours would be sort of definitely long, like you say, with the periodisation. So our winter will start off, this side of Christmas. Most of the stuff we're doing is sort of long stuff, building up a sort of base level of fitness. Some sort of speed endurance stuff in there. So, but we don't really go into the lactic threshold at this point. Okay. That's more sort of post Christmas, and building up in towards the season where we start to sharpen it up. So then we're going sort of from long to short, I guess. Would that be with the periodisation?
Will you be speeding up as the season approaches and introducing more quality running?
That's it. Yeah, and then
more technical work, I guess.
Technical work, going over the hurdles as well. Working more on sharpening things up, getting ourselves running faster. Because I'm only training to run fast for 50 seconds, or sub 50 seconds hopefully, maybe sub 49 seconds.
Yeah, that's what we want.
Yeah, So yeah, definitely everything just starts to shorten, really focusing in on the specific.
That's a good point about the specifics of training. I mean, the key to me is never lose sight of what you're training for. Now, for 400 hurdles, you've got to put in the mileage or the meterage and the reps, etc. You've had a number of coaches with your time in America. Has the approach to training differed between pre-season in particular to what I do with you and what the US guys do?
I mean, I think for me personally, it's difficult because in the US I was part of the 4x1 and the 4x4 team, so I had to do a lot of sprint training. But here it's a little bit more specific, so we tend to do a lot more technical work, so a lot of focus on drills. And the triple jump, it's a technical event. I mean, the approach is only 40 meters long. We're not running the 400, so there's almost, not that there's no need to be running 8x250, but you have to go back to the why. You know, if you're running 8x250 as a triple jump, okay, why are you doing that? How is it going to help you in terms of the triple jump? So certainly I think it's become a lot more specific. I rarely have run on the bend, which has been almost quite nice because I don't know, the workouts aren't hard, but it's a different level of fitness or a different type of fitness. So yeah, it's a bit more specific in terms of doing more drills. I think the winter for a triple jumper is time to correct bad habits, certainly, and I mean, you look at the weight room stuff as well. Yeah, it's a time to get stronger, but it's a bit more specific to the event.
Let's hold on to the weights in a minute. The technical aspects of all our events here is crucial, and I think as a coach sometimes athletes lose sight of the technical side. Like we spent a lot of time working on your hop, didn't we, to do that?
Yeah.
And I think that the beginning of the year is a time where people think, I've got to get strong. Well, in a way you can have strength, but if you can't do the event properly technically, you're going to fall short. I mean, what do you think about that? Well, I mean, obviously you're going to agree with me.
Yeah.
Or you might not.
Yeah. No, strength, I mean, with the triple jump, it's reactive strength. And it's power. You know, there are so many theories about doing squats and should a triple jumper be doing the deep squat or not. And I think in some sense it's specific to the athlete, but in a general sense it's specific to the event. You know, if you're doing 8x3x8 deep squat, why? You know, why are you doing that? How is it going to help you in terms of the event? So for us, I think it's been a bit more power-based exercises.
It's trying to get the exercise to match the movement pattern required of the event rather than doing the exercise in isolation. Now with 4 hurdles, you do have a power requirement. You have a big power requirement, but because you're training anaerobically, aerobically, and short-term anaerobic, if you are doing your weights, you can have more of a mismatch than say Jonathan is, because everything is short-term anaerobic, or predominantly so. But do you spend time? What type of strength work can you do, and do you think it's effective?
Yeah, so like you're saying, with the sport-specific movements, that's definitely something that I think is a key part of your training, and it's something that's especially going to help in terms of injury prevention as well. So like you say, with a deep squat, is there ever going to be a position where a triple jumper is going to be in a deep squat during their event? Probably not, but I feel like you need to have that base level of power and base level of strength, which is something that we try to implement within our training. So we would do our cleans, or power cleans on our squats, which I think are setting us up with a base level of power before we then try and add the sport specific movements in on top of that. So we'll do some step ups, or we had this exercise that we actually did with a medicine ball where we sort of rolled it off our knee, and it sort of was practicing like the attacking the lead leg of the hurdle. So it was a sport specific movement, just with an added weight in. So it was a good way to, train
your muscles,
more specifically towards that event. And that's something that I will look to try and implement in my personal training outside of that. Sport specific movements, like saying, are key, I think, for people's training.
Yeah. What about the type of loading that you might do, and say on your weights, on your cleans? I might know the answer to this, but let's say that a lot of people might think, right, he's got to run 49 seconds, needs a lot of reps of power cleans. A bit like rowers do. They do a lot of high rep training. Are you high rep or are you low rep in your training? So
we tend to start off throughout the winter doing more high rep stuff. So like with the volume on the track is always quite high volume. And then as we get closer to the season, again, we start to sharpen that down. So then we get to more sort of lower repetitions into the summer. So that's really, really working on power aspect.
Speed of movement, yeah.
So
that's fair enough. I mean, we've got a slightly different approach, haven't we, in a way? I mean, you're working with performance ground, and admittedly through the latter part of the season, but it's all more about creating rapid force development very quickly. So we're doing low reps almost from the word go.
Yeah,
that's my philosophy anyway. That's what I try to put across.
Yeah.
I mean, is that something new to you, or is that something?
I mean, in some sense, yes. The latter part of my college career in America, the weights were quite heavy, and it's very different to what I'm doing right now. I think right now is a bit more specific, and I had a pretty good season, so I like to think it did work out. But certainly from the word go, we're definitely working on power-based stuff. With the triple jump, I mean, it's about trying to produce the maximum force in the shortest amount of time. So in some sense, I mean, you look at an exercise like pause squats, that might be useful for a sprinter, because you look at the position in the blocks, you pause, then you deload.
A concentric type of squat.
Yeah.
Hold. Yeah.
Exactly, but the triple jump, you're never in a position like that. It's quite quick, and you look at some jumpers and they are more strength based, spend a lot of time on the ground. But I think John's philosophy of training is make sure as quick as possible on the ground. So,
but having said that, and just to qualify that, you still need to train all the muscular movements, concentric, isometric, and your reactivity, your eccentric as well. So we will do, just to make it clear, we don't do high power exercises all the time. We will do isometrics, for example, because in a movement there is an isometric portion, albeit for milliseconds. So it may, from the research I know, it may have some research, or I've looked at rather with the research, it may have a benefit to do some isometric stuff. But I'm guessing, well, I don't want to put words into your mouth. Do you perhaps see weights as not quite as central? I mean, if I was coaching 400 hurdles, you would tend to think it perhaps wasn't so important, because in a way you're training your muscles differently. You're going to reduce some of their power output from all the aerobic, particularly this time of the year work you're doing. Do you think you could perform as well as you are without doing weights?
I mean, I don't think weights is like the be all and end all. We don't do loads of weights. We only do one day a week, really. Okay. But we try and get those weight sessions to be quite high quality, to get the most out of them. But yeah, I mean, I don't think. I think I'm not sure how much I could improve if I stop weights completely. I think I like to have some in there, just so I'm still getting that power aspect of it. But I don't think it's as vital as some coaches may think. Something we've thought about a lot this year with Marina. She's sort of tried to lower down the amount of weights we are doing. So yeah, that's something we've done, and something that's obviously helped me a lot this year from an injury prevention standpoint as well, because you're not loading with heavy weight, putting stress through your muscles.
Speaking of stress through muscles, triple jump before hurdles, different type of stress. Plyometrics, do you do plyometrics?
Yeah, we do. We probably don't do quite as much as you guys with the triple jump. Obviously, it's quite important with you. But yeah, I guess with the hurdling as well, obviously you're putting a lot of force through, a lot of body weight is going through obviously your leg and the standing leg.
Absorbing it when you're coming off the hurdle.
That's it, yeah. So something that we've tried to implement. We do maybe a couple of sessions a week. We'll add some plyo sort of exercises in, more in the winter, so we build up that sort of strength going through the legs, which then hopefully is going to benefit us from an injury prevention perspective in the summer. So
yes, I mean, from our training with plyometrics, week 2 really, in week 1, because this is another thing. If you've got limited time to train, regardless of your circumstances, you're full time at the moment, but a lot of athletes in our group don't have a lot of time, so we just try and do the things that are going to give the best return, which changes over time. But that's another point. Your training's obviously evolved over the years, so do you think you can cut back on certain things, or do you think you need to pick up on certain things?
Our training definitely has evolved throughout the years. I've been with Marina for about maybe 8 or 9 years now. And yeah, it seems to be that she's quite open to adding things in, but maybe not so open about cutting things back. So our training sessions, across those 8 or 9 years have gradually got longer and longer and longer. She does take some stuff out, but a lot of stuff is added in year on year, which is good, because everything is is for a reason.
It is difficult when you've got a lot of things that you want to include. I mean, because I write articles, I think it was Dan Paff who said that you take out of the training, it's not what you include in the training, it's what you don't include in your training.
Okay.
So when you plan your training, you look at all the things that you might want to do, and you take out the ones that you don't really, you probably think, well, why am I doing that? Sometimes there can be a circumstance where you're just doing it because you've done it. So that's what I try and think every year. I kind of think, well, why are we doing it? Is it really going to help? So it does strip things down, but it's slightly different because you do need the volume. We don't need the volume so much. We also need to make sure that we're rested when we're doing our reps. In particular, when we're looking at power. They want sometimes to do the next set of plyometrics before I really want them to do. Whereas I guess with what you're doing, it probably wouldn't. So I might have an argument to say that you really need to do some maximum strength work at the beginning of the season, so you don't have a contraindicated situation where you're doing your anaerobic stuff, so you can build a real base of strength that will then, and power, not strength, that will then benefit you. Whereas when you're doing it through the season, you're probably not going to maximise the returns because you've got the contraindications of the two energy systems being trained at the same time. But I mean, I'm philosophising a bit now, but what I'm trying to say is specifically for you, but I think for Jonathan it's very key to do the high output power stuff. Yourself, you've got your own thoughts on that or ways of doing it, which you have to.
And I think, as you mentioned, rest is something so crucial, and that's something I added in this year. I timed we have a timer between each rep in the weight room to make sure that each lift is quality. Because if you're doing power cleans, it's cruising name, it's power cleans, so you have to be able to maximise your power output. That's something we added in this year, which I think really helped.
So you time that as well to get the consistency.
Yeah, exactly. Because you might think that, okay, I'm ready to go, but you're actually not. And so we might be 2 minutes or 3 minutes between each rep, and it makes the workout a bit longer. But I found that from a quality standpoint, it's gone up.
Otherwise, a session, no matter what you're lifting, if the rate of the lift, speed of the lift decreases, it's becoming a strength endurance session, even if you're lifting a heavy weight. So for people listening, you could split a set of 6 into 3, even though the coach says, right, do 6 reps or whatever, 85% maximum. If you're tiring on the 3rd rep, take a minute, go back, because otherwise you'll slow down the speed of the movement, if that's what you're looking for. So having long reps and being disciplined about the recovery can be very important when it comes to really maximising strength.
All things being well, on the next show we're going to have Janae Deloach, Olympic long jumper, on Skype with us. And maybe if you'd like to be on the show or you're interested, please get in touch.
Yes, thanks for watching, guys, and give this video a like, subscribe to John's channel.
And thanks for listening, and see you later.